Steve. How are you today?
Pretty good, Pete.
All right, today's topic, I'd like to ask you some questions about medical malpractice. Big area of the law that we practice, something we deal with every day, been doing it for 30 or more years. People who are injured when they have surgery done, they have a bad result, they don't get better. And they call and say, well, I want to sue my doctor or my hospital. And how do we do that?
Well, there's a difference between a medical complication and medical malpractice. There are some surgeries done by the best doctors, the best way, and you're still going to get a bad result, a complication. It's no one's fault. But then there's medical malpractice. The legal definition is failure to follow accepted standards of medical care, where the doctor deviated from what is accepted by other doctors. The real definition is it's really got to be a medical screw-up to win a case.
Big time.
It can't just be a little bit.
Right.
It's got to be big time. That's how it is in Pennsylvania these days.
How hard is it to win a case?
Well, the new statistics came out. It was very interesting. In Pennsylvania, not counting Philadelphia, if you take statewide except for Philadelphia County, the cases that went to trial, over 90% of them were won by doctors, lost by plaintiffs.
Wow.
That is a huge result, and that just shows you how hard it is.
Why would we bother to take a case?
Because good cases settle.
Right.
Those cases I told you before where it's clear, where anyone would come in and say, yes, they made a mistake, where they gave you prescriptions and it was for the wrong person or the wrong amount, or you have something written down. Cases settle. But the cases that go to court, you have more of a difficult time. It's very expensive. If you handle an automobile accident case and you have depositions and you have the doctor's reports and all that, but a medical malpractice case, you need experts to prove it. Nothing is obvious. You need an expert, the same specialty as the doctor you're going after.
So if it's a botched operation, orthopedic operation, you need
I need an orthopedic doctor. And it's hard to get experts. It is hard to get doctors to testify against other doctors. And the doctors are very expensive. So number one, you've got to get the expert, which is difficult, and then you have to pay for it. And in a typical malpractice case, nothing's typical, but if you ask for an average, you're spending anywhere from $40,000 to $100,000 in expenses to bring a case to trial.
So when you're saying you are spending, and who's the you you're talking about?
The you is the attorney. And if we lose, and anybody handling malpractice cases over the years has lost, you not only don't get paid.
So all the hours that are put into the case, hundreds and hundreds of hours preparing it, getting ready, and going to trial, plus the attorney, our firm, for example, put the money up front, $50,000, $100,000. If it's at a zero verdict, we don't get that money back.
And that's why selection is so important. And that's why the myth that you hear all the time that these lawyers are just suing any doctor who gets a bad result,
Right.
It's a myth. It's not true. Because if you did, you'd run out of money very quickly. The other problem is at trial, jurors like their doctors.
Right.
And 98% of all doctors do a wonderful job. But like any profession, there are bad people in it. There are bad lawyers, there are bad plumbers, there's bad doctors.
And there could be good doctors that make bad mistakes.
Yes, but most of the time over the years, you'll find it's really the bad doctors that keep on doing it. The tough part is to get the jury to put down their core belief that doctors are great, and they are, but that this doctor in this particular case made a horrible mistake.
Give us an example of one of your more interesting or most interesting cases.
Didn't think you'd ask, Pete, so I just brought something here which I've shown groups and people, and this is a case probably about 20 years ago, but it's my most interesting, and because it's the most unbelievable. This was left in a client after surgery. Now when I say this, the exact same towel, wasn't this towel, but it was the exact same size, and that was left inside one of my client's stomachs. And it was all bunched up, and of course it was wet and put in there. And this was used to put on the table. Most of the time doctors put it on the table to put instruments on. In this case, the doctor wanted to use it as a sponge. And the nurses didn't count it because they count the instrument and the sponges. They didn't count it because they thought it was just to be person to be on the table.
Well, Steve, we have a principle in the law, or you and I practice, it's no harm, no foul. You know, if somebody's injured due to the carelessness of a doctor, is there technically a case? Yes, but the question is, was there really an injury? Was
Well,
there an injury in this case?
In this case, there certainly was, because for a month after surgery, he wasn't really real good, as you can imagine, and then they had to open him up again. So there was. But you're right, in a lot of cases, and I'll give you a very quick example, and it happens in cancer cases where somebody comes in and they have a lump and the doctor says, no, it's fine, it's just a cyst, forget about it. And then they go in another month or two to another doctor who discovers it. Nothing happened in that month.
And then malpractice is the failure of the first doctor to diagnose it.
If you take that same case and it was a year and it led to a different stage of cancer, then you could have a case.
So you have the difference between a month and a year, and I assume the growth rate of the cancer, how
It's
fast
all,
it
and
spreads.
that gets back to point number one with the experts. And you need oncology experts or hematology experts to show that the malpractice caused the harm.
How many cases do you accept compared to the number of calls or people that you talk to about med mal?
For every 50, 75, 100 calls, we have a case.
15, 20 minutes with each person that we talk to.
You're exactly right. And when they call, after they speak to us, if there isn't a case, I think they're at least relieved because they know there wasn't. It was just something that happened. They don't carry that anger around with them, and hopefully we do a service to them.
And that happens all the time with a lot of our calls, and you can't help them, but you can at least make them feel less anxious about the whole thing.